Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, we are discussing a watch that was originally launched in 2019, but revised as you see it here for 2020. So in 2019, Audemars Piguet ended the Jules Audemars dress watch line and launched the Code 11.59. The first-year Code 11.59 automatics, that is the three-hand date models, they had dials that were expensive, but from certain angles didn't look quite as costly as they were. So based on the Bolshoi Theater model of 2019, which was a limited edition with an enamel dial, Audemars Piguet redesigned the look of the watch, at least from a dial standpoint, using the same gradient color fade as the Bolshoi model. So what we have here is representative of the 2020 and later Code 11.59 self-winding, since we have a revised date disc whose font matches the rest of the dial, and a dial that is a lovely burgundy color gradient fade, so fume or smoked from lighter at the center of the dial to darker at the edge. And now the watch truly does look its price from every single angle. Taking a quick look at the size, 41 millimeters in diameter, 10.8 millimeters thick, 49.7 lug-to-lug. It has a spacing of 22 millimeters between the lugs. So while a dress watch, it is by no means a shrinking violet. It is a sizable timepiece, somewhere between a traditional dress watch and a sports watch. Taking a look on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it fits nicely, though I will say that the lugs are pushing out to the edge of my wrist. If your wrist is oval or flat across the top, you'll find that a 15 centimeters circumference wrist could wear this. If your wrist is more, I would say, round in cross-section, then you want to have a 16 centimeter circumference wrist and up. Here's my wrist again, it's 16 centimeters. The watch looks thick, but it's not. It's 10.8, so this will slide underneath a cuff, no problem. The defining dimension, though, on these is always the lug-to-lug at almost 50 millimeters. It is quite broad across the wrist for a dress watch. The strap is a factory piece, as we've got a combination of textile in burgundy with a burgundy stitch. It's got a folded edge. It is bolstered with substantial stuffing inside to give it volume and body. You can see how the taper of the lugs continues into the taper of the bolstered strap. On the underside, you can see the lining features absolutely no wear. An Audemars Piguet factory strap in outstanding condition. The buckle is unique to the model. As you can see, it uses the same hexagonal bolt to fix itself to the strap that the lug uses to fix the case to the strap. That also has the happy consequence of meaning the buckle's held to the strap and the strap is held to the case using screws and bars, which give a great deal of security, far more than a spring bar. I've seen some spring bar nightmares lately. This is much more expensive to manufacture and somewhat more time-consuming to work with than a spring bar, but also more secure. So that buckle design is specific to the Code 11.59's one odd quirk. I guess every quirk is odd, but you can see that the buckle is white gold like the case, but the buckle is not a rhodium-plated white gold, whereas you could see that the case itself is blindingly white rhodium-plated white gold. This is just something that Audemars Piguet does. They're one of a handful of brands that still use rhodium plate on white gold to give it the silver sheen of platinum. We've got a crown with a combination of polish and satin, and then a case that is full of nuance. You can see that there is a irregular curvature to the bezel. As you move all the way around, it actually dips at 12 and 6 and rises at 9 and 3. We also have a crystal that's unconventionally cambered. You can see that the refractory patterns created from different angles are sights and scenes you're only ever going to experience on a Code 11.59. Also, you can see that the lugs are only welded to the case at the top. The bottom actually features a small gap between the lower lug and the case back. And then the lugs themselves are open. They are almost buttress-like. If you can imagine the flying buttresses of a Gothic cathedral, the lugs are similar to those. Now you can see that within the screw sink, along the edges, even the interior rim, there's micro beveling. And you'll appreciate the Royal Oak references. You have the hexagonal screw fixing the strap to the case, just like the bezel of a Royal Oak, and the shape of the bezel of a Royal Oak, the octagon, the rounded octagon, that is the mid case of this watch. We have a very narrow bezel, and it's satinated outboard and polished on its top. When you look at the watch from head on, the bezel almost disappears. This watch is all dial. There's a stepped and lacquered rehaut that acts as the minute and second scale for the watch. Slope down from that to the main dial. The main dial has a gradient lacquer fade. White gold hands, quarter Arabic numerals, indices, and Audemars Piguet logos, so these elements will never tarnish or oxidize. Getting a little bit closer, everything you see here is just dust. The hands actually have a curved vaulted profile over their top that I really love, almost like something you would see at a low-volume boutique independent. Take a look at the date disc. The first year these were out, the date disc had a different font than the rest of the dial. Now you can see that there is a much closer match between, say, this 3 and this 3. Now you can see it's not perfect, because while this 6 and this 6 are the same, this 6 isn't quite the same. But matching the rehaut to the disc, the date disc, that was one of the evolutions of the 2020 models. Taken assessment of total exterior finish into account, it's really surpassing. Almost as much fine detailing as on the case of a Royal Oak. Turn it all over, and you can see that we've got the caliber 4302. So this is an automatic, latest generation, replaces the old roughly 26 millimeter 3120. That was a 60-hour power reserve. This is now a 70. The old movement was 3 hertz. This is now 4 hertz. A 32 jewel, 32 millimeter movement. It's large, and as you can see, properly fills this case back. It has ceramic ball bearings for higher efficiency, a 22 karat multiply hand-finished skeletonized and interior beveled rotor, showing you the coats of arms of the Audemars and Piguet families, reminding you that AP is the oldest Swiss watchmaker still owned and run by founding families. 150 years old this year, 2025. We have the free-sprung balance, which is Gyromax style, so the adjustments are done using the eccentric screws on the rim of the balance, not with a mobile stud index. That is both more shock-resistant and more precise to adjust, and despite the higher beat rate, AP doesn't have a small balance. They have a large balance and a high beat rate, the best in combination for fine timekeeping. A dual-anchored balance bridge for better shock resistance, and the watch does include both hacking seconds and a quick set date. All this is water-resistant down to 30 meters. The finishing is a combination of mechanical and hand finish that is price appropriate and used by others in the space. It's very similar to what you'd find on JLC or FP Journe, for example. The rotor, however, is more obviously hand finished, and it's probably the most hand detailed and laboriously crafted piece of the entire caliber. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.